Welcome to A Family Guide to Joy in All Circumstances. I'm Pastor Travis. We are in chapter 11, which is Joy in Dying to Self. The centering statement being Jesus knew joy because he died to self. We're going to explore that over the next several minutes. It'll be an opportunity for us to grow in the Lord and grow in joy. You're not going to want to miss it. Joy in dying to self. Again, that's this chapter's focus. And our section here is just being able to define what is dying to self. Jesus called out with a loud voice, quote, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit," unquote. When he had said this, he breathed his last. It's Luke chapter 23, verse 46. It's Jesus' seventh and final statement recorded from the cross. Evangelical Convictions notes that the core of the gospel is found in the work of Jesus Christ, especially in the death of Christ on the cross. God's righteousness is revealed, a righteous hatred of sin and a righteous commitment to his covenant promise to bring blessing to the world. That blessing is joy. So I go back to the question, what is dying to self? And I share with you a brief story here from Leonard Bernstein, the late conductor of the New York Philharmonic Orchestra. He was once asked, "Hey, what's the most difficult instrument to play?" And a lot of times I'll do this with my audiences. I'll say, "Hey, what people will say, the cello, the oboe, someone will always say a kazoo. There'll be or the trombone." But Leonard Bernstein, without hesitation, replied, "Second fiddle. I can get plenty of first violinists, but to find someone who can play the second fiddle with enthusiasm, that's a problem. And if we have no second fiddle, we have no harmony." Wow. Does that hit close to home? Because it does for me. I think about that. We all want to play first fiddle, right? We want to be sitting first chair. But really, we should follow Christ's example. Even he yielded. And you say he did? Yes. Jesus played second fiddle to the Father in perfect harmony with the Spirit. That is a picture of dying to self. Next, we'll be talking about knowing Jesus and knowing joy. So about that knowing Jesus and knowing joy. Jesus was increasingly, as his earthly ministry progressed, he was in more and more constant friction, constant conflict with the leaders of the day, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, of course, the Romans. Even among his own people, his disciples, there was just, you could see that the climax was building. But Jesus plainly revealed that his obedience to the Father necessitated dying to himself. And that's specifically, as we know, through a torturous death upon the cross. I want to go to John chapter 8, verses 28 to 30 to share what Jesus said. So Jesus said to them, "You will lift up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am. You will know that whatever I do is not by my own authority. You will know that I say only what the Father has taught me. The one who sent me is with me. I always do what pleases him. So he has not left me alone." While he was saying these things, many people believed in him. John chapter 8, verses 28 to 30. And I love that, even as Jesus is doing battle with the Pharisees and taking them back to truth, back to the scriptures, the true word of God, not rules of man or woman, just taking them back to the scriptures. And we see something fascinating about Jesus here. Jesus always does what pleases the Father. His actions in this scripture passage relate directly to this guide's main premise, and that's again this. Joy is knowing Jesus, not just knowing of him, but knowing him in deeper and deeper relationship, knowing Jesus, following him through all of our trials. All our trials. That's how this journey to joy really is, that walk with Christ where we're learning to follow him, we're learning to trust him, we're learning to be subservient to him, we're learning to die to self. And again, lesson learned number 96 I share in the video, I will share here. Dying to self pleases the Father. We are dependent upon Him, on His love, His mercy, His grace, His protection, His will. There can be no greater joy than dying to self and knowing Jesus. Just exciting, exciting. I'm going to transition in this next section into my journey to joy in just a moment. So about this horrific fall, this of the entire guide was the most difficult part to write, and for obvious reasons. I had no idea how pivotal that Wednesday, October 19th, 2011 was going to be for our family. Suzanne and I had just celebrated our 17th wedding anniversary, and my bride had completed her first half marathon. All six of us were cheering her on. It was exciting. My brother and I were, at this point, it was a Wednesday again, we were having a great sales year. It was really exciting, almost like, and all was right with the world. But as I was grabbing food with my brother that day, some lunch, I got a call from my wife, and my wife, her voice, you could tell right away, I had never heard her this way. Something was very, very wrong. She said, "Trav, I slipped and fell down wet stairs. I'm in so much pain. I can't move. I can't get up. I need your help." And my characterizing it here is a far cry from what she actually sounded like. It was hard to describe. I soon learned that Suzanne had landed with such force as she slipped on the same stairs. She fell and she landed on her rear end that both of her shoes on her feet, they flew off with the force was so great. And what we learned eventually was that she suffered a fractured sacrum. It's a bone above your tailbone. You know how much it hurts to land on your tailbone. She fractured her sacrum. She had a microfractured pelvis. She had a 95% labral tear and a ruptured vertebrae. And that was just the beginning of it. I mean, it was almost like one of those cartoon characters wearing an ugly Christmas sweater. And there's a string, and one of the other characters begins to pull it and unravels. And it's comic when you watch it on television, but it was much grimmer, and that's exactly what happens. It wasn't Suzanne's sweater that was unraveling, it was her health. And in that time frame, my bride was bedridden for 14 months, only able to sleep, eat, and homeschool her kids. I mean, it was just, it's surreal to think back on it. She underwent 13 surgeries in 3 years. We visited the emergency room about 40 times for pain and related issues. She endured almost constant and often debilitating pain for over 6 years. We saw dozens of physicians and specialists and surgeons who tried to address her pain, and she nearly died twice due to medical complications. So the severity of what she went through, every aspect of our life, our marriage, our relationship with her kids, our friends, many left us, our work, our finances, we nearly went bankrupt again. The worst part of it all, I was watching Suzanne cry out in pain and writhe in miserable contortions. It was just torture for her. And I kept wondering, why was God allowing my bride to suffer so much? And I fought to know joy. I'm telling you guys, I fought to know joy, but it was a titanic struggle. And in that, I want to share Lesson Learned 101. It's basically simply this. Sometimes God is going to allow you to suffer for years, and joy seems elusive. And brothers and sisters, it's in those times that we must cling to Him with everything we've got and trust Him. Trust Him. Let's take a short break, and we'll be back for the second half. Welcome back. We are on the second half here of the podcast in chapter 11, and we transition over to, again, my journey to joy, following Jesus' journey to the cross. Another story here on our journey to joy, and it was the night of my mom's death revisited. And what happened in this time frame was Suzanne and my mom had both been in the hospital concurrently 3 times in 2014, twice at the same hospital. Now this third time would be my mom's last. And my mom texted me, and I copied on the text. I remember it perfectly. Must be tough. So we're back to A Family Guide to Joy in All Circumstances, chapter 11. After that short break, I want to share with you a tender story of how my bride died to herself. For the third time in 2014, Suzanne and my mom, Suzette, were hospitalized concurrently twice at the same hospital. Of course, this would be Mom's last time being hospitalized. And Mom texted me, and I'll never forget the text. She said, "It must be tough to have both of us here. Tough indeed. I'm praying for you." So even in that, my mom was praying to God, looking to God to save her. And of course, save her that he did. We miss her dearly, but she is with Christ. And I cannot imagine the joy she is experiencing right now being in his presence. Early in the week, Suzanne's surgeon admitted her for this emergency procedure. She was having 10 out of 10 pain in her abdomen. And he tried a procedure, in other words, a surgery, that didn't work. It became very clear that she needed to have a more aggressive surgery. And that left her wheelchair bound. Yet in between those two procedures, the first one that didn't work and the second one that did, God worked a gentle miracle through my bride. Though my bride and my mom were on different floors recovering, and Suzanne was still smarting from the pain of her first surgery, she knew that she needed to check in on my mom, her mom-in-law. And amazingly, Suzanne slid herself into a wheelchair, took the elevator to Mom's floor, and slowly, can you see that, wheeled herself up to Mom's room. As she came to the door, Suzanne rolled to the door, and my mom was lying in the bed, just conked out. And Suzanne noticed her, Mom's emaciated frame. And as only a mother could know, Suzanne knew what she needed to do. So determined, Suzanne forced herself up out of the wheelchair and got some warm water in a portable basin. Placing the basin on a stand, she was anchoring herself between the bed rail with one hand and the other hand to dip the sponge in, and from head to toe, she gently bathed my mom. And over the next several minutes, despite her pain, Suzanne washed my mom's head, her arms, her hands, her legs, and of course, Suzanne washed her feet. And that, to me, just a picture of Jesus' love. And when she finished, Suzanne collapsed in her wheelchair. She was discharged the next day, only to return for that second procedure I had alluded to. And I tell you, she made Jesus proud. And that, to me, is why I'm sharing lesson learned number 102, and that's this. Even in moments encumbered by sorrow and pain, God can work such tender miracles for his glory. Despite the obvious challenges, Suzanne counts this moment as one of her most precious memories with her mother-in-law, a joy in a time of dying. Honey, that was a really great move, and I thank God for what you, Lord, taught us through that. So we've come to the end of chapter 11, and now a time of wrap, of just concluding what we learned in chapter 11's Family Guide to Joy in All Circumstances. And the chapter is entitled, of course, Joy in Dying to Self. Jesus knew joy because he died to self. And we reviewed Jesus' last recorded saying on the cross. It is powerful. And as we talk through that, knowing Jesus is knowing joy. And that joy is going to involve challenges, it's going to involve pain, it's going to involve suffering, it's going to involve doing out and without, rather. And where we went with that, and really just to sum it all up, is there is joy in dying to self. Jesus paid the ultimate price of dying to self on the cross. So in our walk, what we can do no better than die to ourselves each and every day to give God the glory and have God manifest himself so clearly and so wonderfully through us to a world that sorely needs him. Joy is knowing Jesus, following him through all our trials. In your name, Father. See you next time.